This video is for the axle peg, and what I did for it is I made kind of a little SketchUp of what we're going to draw for our first sketch over here, just so you have kind of an idea of what it's going to look like. Because when you're looking at the axle peg, which is just a screw, it looks a little bit confusing from this angle for some people. So I'm going to start a 2D sketch on the XY plane, and I'm going to draw a line that's going to go straight up from the origin. And if we look at my little drawing right here, we could see that it is 1.125 inches. And if we look over here, it's actually hard to see, which is why I made this drawing. So where we get that number is we know that our thread length is 1 inch plus the head of the screw is 0.125. So that's why it's a little bit hard to see. So again, that number that we're going to have go straight up is 1.125. Now it's off my screen, so I'm going to press the home key so I can see everything again. I'm going to have this line go over. It's going to be at a 90-degree angle. And I can see from my drawing, it is going to be 0.125. And if we look at our actual part, it's a little, again, hard to see where it is, but it's this flat part. So you can see the diameter right here. So I actually took the diameter and cut it in half just for the sake of doing this first sketch to make it a little bit easier for you to understand what's going on. So again, for this number, it is 0.125. Alright, so that's where I'm going to finish that line. To back out of that, you could hit the escape tool, or the escape key on your keyboard. My next line is going to be the exact same dimension, because if we look over here, again, if you're not used to reading thread, it's a little bit confusing, but we have a 1/4 inch for the diameter of our thread. So I placed in 1/8 of an inch. Oh, need my line tool. 1/8 of an inch, which is 0.125. Alright, and if you're following along with the larger numbers, it's right here. Okay, and we're going to have a line going straight up. This line, looking here, is 1 inch. And if you're looking at our graphic, it's right here. Again, a little bit hard to read if you're not used to reading the thread notes. So 1 inch. Again, that needs to be 90 degrees up. And again, we're going to have a line going over. This one I'm going to wait on putting the dimension for. And then I have a little tiny line that's going to go right up. That is actually right here. Or in this drawing, right here. So that is 0.031. Alright, so I'm going to have that go up. So again, that is 0.031. A lot of people miss this 0 after the point, and then the line's way larger than they mean it to be. So I'm going to click on my dimension tool, click on that lovely green line, and our original line, so right across from it. And the reason why I wanted to leave that dimension out originally is because where I had it placed and where I was going to dimension is not referenced in our original drawing, but it is referenced right here for if we're going from our center all the way to the edge. So again, what I did is I took it and I cut that dimension in half. So what you're going to type in is 0.211. Alright, and we have our last dimension, which we're going to do as an arc. So what I'm going to do is click on the two ends that we still have open. And when you're placing this one in, just make sure you don't accidentally clip it in somewhere. You could type in the dimension. I never bother because I could just click on this little dot, which is the center of our arc, and drop it right on our original line that we drew in, and it happens to be the correct dimension that we need it to be. So if you feel like actually typing it in instead of moving your line or your center of your arc in, it would be a radius of 0.236. So now we can finish sketch and revolve. So as you can see here, I didn't put in a center line this time because I want to show you what to do if you don't have your center line. All you got to do is click on the line you want it to revolve around, and we're all set. So that's kind of our basic shape of our axle peg. So the next part we're going to be doing is the dimensioning for kind of our fine details. So this first piece that I have typed up is for the hex socket. So we're going to create a sketch on the top, and underneath the rectangle tool there's this polygon tool. Some of you might have used it before, some of you might not have. But what I'm going to do with the polygon tool is I'm going to make sure that it's at 6. The default just happens to be 6, so if you haven't been using it for anything else, the default's what you want. So we're going to click on the origin and then place it in, and then click on done. The next thing I'm going to do is dimension. This dimension is dimensioning across the flats. Okay, so what across the flats means is you click on 2 opposite flat edges and then dimension. So the dimension for this one is 5/32, so 5/30 seconds. And as you can see here, it's still green. What we're going to do is constrain using either the horizontal constraint or the vertical constraint. It doesn't matter. All we're trying to do is just kind of line it up. So I picked the horizontal constraint and it kind of tipped it the other way. It doesn't really matter. We just want to make it nice and lined up with kind of our little box here, or the XY. Nope. In this case, it's the XZ plane. Just so when you're dimensioning later on your work drawing, it makes it a lot easier. So we're going to finish our sketch and extrude. We want it to, instead of join is when you're adding, we want it to cut. And the depth we want it to cut is right over here. So that is 0.111. So it's 3 ones. And then OK. The next part we're going to add in, I'm going to tip this because it's going to be a lot easier to see what I'm doing, is the chamfer. Okay, so chamfer is right here next to the hole and fillet tool. Alright, so what we're going to do for this one, because I can see from my dimensions I have an angle and I have a distance. So this first one is distance, where both the parts that it's cutting are going to be the same. And then, we have distance angle. And the last one is if you have 2 different distances. But for ours, we're going to use distance and angle. So our angle is 45 degrees. That just happens to be the default. And our distance, we need to change it to 0.03. And now we're going to click on the face. So the face is this part right here. And then click on the edge. If you don't do it in that order, it kind of confuses the program and then it won't work. So now we're going to click OK. And our last part to this is adding the thread. So the thread tool is right next to our chamfer tool. So we can click on it. And the face that we want to cover is this part right here. And then we're going to look at the specification to make sure it's the type we actually want it to be. Because we made the size of this cylinder originally an 1/8 of an inch, when we revolved it turned into a 1/4 inch, and 1/4 inch right here we can see is what we want. And we want 20 threads per inch. We have that there. And we want coarse thread. So there's coarse and fine thread. C for coarse, F for fine. We want C, so that is right there. And there's right hand and left hand thread. For pretty much everything you're going to be doing, it's right hand, and it's also the default. Very rarely are you going to need left hand. Then click OK. So right there, that is our finished axle peg.